Let's get to Skubal here, shall we? So sharing the screen, we had something from Jon Morosi today. So he says here, on Tarik Skubal, consider the following. I'm told the Tigers have had a scout watching the Orioles' AAA Norfolk affiliate in recent days. Jackson Holliday, Kobe Mayo, Connor Norby, Kyle Stowers, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, are on the Norfolk roster. I mean, wait, we all know the deal here, right? There's not really too much to dive into when it comes to Tarik Skubal. We all know how good he is. He could be well on his way to winning a Cy Young this year. He was my pick coming into this year. The guy's having an unbelievable season. ERA at 2.41, has a FIP at a 2.56, has almost 11 strikeouts per nine, under 2 walks per nine, under a home run per nine. He's having an absolutely insane season. So coming into the year, you're thinking, all right, Tigers, all right, they're probably going to be competing. But, for the Tigers, have been playing a little better as of late. But as of right now, they're 6 out in this wild card race. They've made up a little bit of ground. But, again, you got 8 days until the deadline. 8 days until the deadline right now. So, what's it going to be here? Right? What are they going to do? I mean, I still think you got to give them at least until the end of the week. I don't think the Tigers are in any rush right now to make such a significant trade for a Tarik Skubal. But when you're thinking about teams out there that really could use some starting pitching, I mean, of course, the top team are the Baltimore Orioles, right? The Baltimore Orioles right now, I mean, all the injuries that they've had, it makes a lot of sense for the Orioles to be interested in a guy like Tarik Skubal. But then you might think from the Tigers' point of view, right? The Tigers, right, even if they are out of it this year, well, they're going to have him for next year and the year after that too. So it makes sense to hang on to him. But you could also make the argument if they could get a guy possibly like a Jackson Holliday, I think that's just absolutely insane if that were to happen. But if not him, a Kobe Mayo, I would imagine that, you have to at least have your ears open to it. And Jon Morosi actually did put a little something out here today. He said here, in Tarik Skubal scenarios, the Orioles and Dodgers are often grouped together. He goes on to say, I see a major difference between them. The Orioles can put together a very compelling offer consisting entirely of position players currently in the minor leagues, where that is something the Tigers, you could say they are lacking a little bit in that department. They got some really good pitching. You got a couple of guys down at the minor league level. You do got a couple of younger guys on the major league roster too. But that is something where position players could be maybe of interest to them. And he goes on to say the Dodgers likely cannot. I actually agree with that with Morosi. The Dodgers have a couple of pieces that they could send over where they are major league ready. Like if you wanted to send over Bobby Miller, I think that's possible. You got a couple other pieces there, like Dalton Rushing probably could be available there. You could have River Ryan, but you might think from the Orioles' point of view, they could probably put a little bit more together of guys that are a full package of at least close to major league ready guys, if not ready at this point. So taking a look here, he goes on to say here, for a Skubal trade to make sense from Detroit's perspective, the Tigers need multiple potential all-star position players who are close to the majors, right? So, yeah, it makes sense. You got Kobe Mayo, involved there. Connor Norby could be a decent piece. Cade Povich could be a piece you put in there. I think the Dodgers could definitely make it interesting, but if you're looking at guys here that the Orioles could give up, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? So let's actually go to good old baseballtradevalues.com. But right now, as you can see, Skubal, he's got an insane value right now, over $100 million. I was trying to think back also to 2017 when the Astros, when they pulled off the Justin Verlander trade, right? They gave up a lot of beef. A difference there was Verlander was on a bigger contract at the time. So when you took a look at his overall field value, right, what his performance on the field, and then you subtract his salary, it still was pretty big. Verlander, if you go back to 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, he was consistently getting projections, anywhere from like a 4 to a 5 wins above replacement on Fangraphs, right? So each win, you're looking at around $8 million on average. So yeah, that's a lot of field value right there, for Justin Verlander over the course of that contract that he was on at the time. And then you subtract the money that he was going to be making over the next few years. You still had a pretty big surplus there that, of prospects that you would have to give up, right? So yeah, Elias has pulled off a big trade. It's not, I've even seen people say, oh, well, he was helping out the Detroit Tigers taking on that contract. Remember, the Tigers, they did pay a little bit of that contract too, but I mean, they had to give up a lot to get Verlander there. So with Skubal, it's a little different. You're not paying him as much money, so that's why you're seeing just a ginormous value right here, right? He's not going to cost you as much for the next 2.5 years, and he's really good, right? So if we were to put together some packages here, I mean, listen, I said this a little while back, right? I've even seen some other people start to hop on the train a little bit, where I've seen, other people starting to also bring up Jackson Holliday, right? I remember mentioning it a little while ago. And, I didn't think it was really something that could be possible. But I'm going to be honest with you, the more I think about it, the more I wonder if his name could seriously be in consideration. Because, I'm not really too much of a conspiracy theorist. I'm not really, a guy that likes to dive into that rabbit hole too much. But I've been kind of thinking about it a little bit. We saw the rumor, right? Jared Jones for Jackson Holliday. I guess that was talked about at one point. I don't find that completely believable. Maybe names came up possibly, and it was just a phone call, and it was a one-and-done phone call, right? But I'm also wondering this, right? Jackson Holliday, he came up for a couple of games, and the Orioles were like, ooh, no way, we need to send him back down, right? And you haven't seen him since. You haven't seen anything with him, right? Not even a peep, nothing. And he's been hitting really well down at AAA. So it's like, yeah, I could see Orioles fans saying, well, yeah, no, you want to make sure he is fully ready to go. Yeah, I buy that. I just figured he would be maybe up by now. I figured you would maybe see something. Don't you find that a little interesting that he is still down there? Right? I mean, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just the way I'm thinking about it. Maybe there is, a more of a reason to it that I'm not thinking about. But I find that interesting that he's still at AAA and he's hitting extremely well. Right? I mean, let's even just go here to the Orioles, or let's go to his stats, right? I mean, the guy's tearing it up. I mean, I know it's not just about the stats. I know there's obviously little things that they want him, to work on here. But, I mean, come on. Like, he has almost a 450 on base. He's, I mean, that's incredible plate discipline. I mean, that's insane. He's got 10 home runs as well. I don't know. I mean, yeah, sure. I'm sure there's maybe some little things that they want him to work on. The strikeout percentage, it's a little higher than what it was in 2023, but he's walking a lot more. Right? He's walking 23% of the time in AAA. Why isn't he up yet? If you're looking at the Baltimore Orioles, sure. I mean, you've had guys like Jordan Westburg come up, right? But, I mean, Jorge Mateo is playing second base right now. Why isn't Jackson Holliday playing second base? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, don't you find that a little interesting, right? That they he got off to, when he got called up, he got off to that, kind of a tough start. Don't you also maybe find it a little interesting that they got him back down to AAA really quick? They thought, oh, okay, we don't want to maybe get this guy exposed a little bit. I'm not saying there's anything to expose. I'm just saying maybe they didn't want any more value to possibly get diminished with him. Again, I'm not trying to play conspiracy theorist here. I'm just finding that interesting, right? Because you got Jorge Mateo playing second base right now. Why isn't Jackson Holliday playing second base? I don't know. Is that just me? Orioles fans, can you give me an explanation for that? I'm just saying. Either way, If it's not Jackson Holliday, yeah, we've all known you can do Kobe Mayo, right? I've even seen some people say maybe Jordan Westberg. He's just been so good this year. I just find that, no, why would you give up a guy that's so productive for you? I don't think Westberg would be an option at this point. But yeah, you start with a Kobe Mayo, and then you just throw in some other pieces, right? You got Povich in here. You could do, if you want to put in McDermott in there too, put in Enrique Bradfield, you put that Connor Norby piece in there. I'm not saying it has to be this exact package, but there you go, right? There you go. I'm just saying. So, Mira, Jackson Holliday is recovering from an elbow injury. He just started playing second base this week. Huh. Interesting. Let me go see. What has that game log been looking like? Well, how long was he out for? But even before that, I feel like he would have been up a little sooner, I don't know. Am I missing something? Oh, wow. He's really... Oh, no, okay. I was about to say, he's been out since April. Am I missing something? No, that's the major league one. Doesn't say what position he was playing here. Has he not been playing second base at all? When did the elbow get hurt? I don't know. Either way, I feel like you could have made a case for Holliday to be up a little while ago, right? I don't know. Sean, he was a DH for a while. Well, let me actually see. Whoops. Jackson Holliday. Because I think you can see the positions that he's played in the game log. Let me actually go look here. Does it show the positions here? No. Okay, well, let me go to the fielding. So how much has he DH'd this year? Well, he's DH'd 15 times. He's played 40 games at second base, and he's started 10 games at shortstop. So yeah, he's DH'd a little bit, but it's not really been a lot. I'm sorry. He's been DHing for weeks. Well, it can't be more than a month because it's 15 games. It definitely can't be more than a month. Either way, I'm just saying. I feel like there's still, I don't know. I feel like Holliday still could have been up at some point. Anyway, either way, if you didn't want to do Jackson Holliday, you could do this package here, right? All these guys. Maybe Bradfield is a little further away, but all of these guys are knocking on the door for the most part. Let's do a deal with Holliday, all right? If you did do the Holliday deal, if you send him to the Tigers, I know they just agreed to terms with Bryce Rayner, but you never know what could happen with some of these guys, right? But Jackson Holliday could essentially... That's your heir apparent to Javier Baez, right? So you figure either way, Jackson Holliday, whatever, that guy can play anywhere basically. But you could do Holliday in this deal, and it really wouldn't take all that much more after that. You could probably do Povich, and then you could probably do maybe like a Jude Fabian or like a Dylan Beavers, right? You could do Holliday and maybe two more pieces, and you get the deal done. Yeah, Jackson Holliday, that is a massive piece to put back in the trade. But when I'm kind of thinking about it, is that worth it to get 2.5 years of Tarik Skubal? If it was 3.5 years, I think that could be a little different. All right? But only 2 more seasons? I don't know. I see you. Rafael Diaz, 100% worth. A part of me, listen, I'm not the prospect hugger, right? It depends. I think there's certain situations where you hug your prospects. But listen, I am someone, I'm all about giving up guys. I'm all about, if you got prospects to deal and you can go win a World Series, I'm all about it, right? I'm all over it. I am probably the least prospect-hugging guy out there, right? In this situation, though, it's a little different, right? Because you got the number one prospect in Major League Baseball. Again, if it was 3 more seasons of Skubal, I think you can make that work in my head. But 2 more plus this postseason, it's tough. That's tough, right? But as the old saying goes, if you want something good, you gotta get something good. I know people hate hearing that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Brock, I definitely see you in the chat too. Why not just extend him? I mean, yeah. I mean, it depends. There's other factors that come into play for that, right? Maybe he wants to go to the market, right? I mean, Burns, he's going to hit the market this offseason. He's going to get himself a fat check. So, I don't know. It really, it takes 2 to tango at that point. But for the Orioles, I don't know, man. It's going to be really interesting. We're going to keep talking about this. We're probably going to be seeing new stories coming out. Did Jarren Duran just do something else? My goodness, Jarren Duran is on some kind of level right now, man. But everyone, let's move on here. Let's move on. Let's get to our next story here. And we're going to talk about the Cubs. Also, everyone, if you can, hit that like button for me. And also, if you see in the chat, I have a poll, or not a poll, I have a link at the top. I have it pinned to the top of the chat. If you can click that link and go vote for me, I will love you forever. We got about 200 people in this chat. That's 200 votes right there that could help me get to the next round in the Twitter personality or the Red Sox Twitter personality tournament. I'm just saying, I need your help. But let's talk about the Cubbies. Let's talk about the Cubs. So we got a little something here. Let's share the screen. So according to Patrick Mooney, Ken Rosenthal, and Will Salmon of The Athletic, the Cubs do not expect to be buyers. Now, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be sellers, but they're not going to be buyers. So at least you're about halfway there, right? So if we're taking a look at the Cubs when it comes to the standings, and I said this last night, right? They're 3.5 out of a wild card spot, but are they going to be able to get this going? I don't know. It just feels like a team that should be able to get something moving here, right? Galcian, which Twitter is yours? I will put my handle in the chat. If you need to go find my Twitter, there's my handle at GingerSnapHide. But again, if you just click the link at the top of the chat, that'll bring you right to that poll. If you can vote for me, I will love you forever. But Cubs, 48-53, time is ticking here. And listen, if they're 3.5 out, I mean, they're not exactly out of it, but does that really, inspire you to go, really go buy some big pieces? I'm not sure about that, right? Now, if you take a look here at the Cubs, if they were to maybe take a bit more of like a conservative sell, right, where maybe they sell off like maybe just a couple of expiring contracts, right? Kyle Hendricks possibly could be a guy. Kyle Hendricks is not hurt, right? No, he's not, but he's not going to get you all that much. He's having a pretty down season. You got some other guys, possibly that, Cody Bellinger, he does have the couple player options. So that could be something that maybe could come into play there. Maybe teams don't really want to risk Bellinger coming back on for, $27.5 million. I'm not very, sure about that. When you're looking at the Cubs, there's not really any clear-cut trade pieces. We have talked about Jameson Taillon. He was in the news over the weekend. And Jameson Taillon, that's been a guy where the Red Sox, they've been, I guess, supposedly making some calls, according to Bob Nightingale. So if the Cubs were to pay down a little bit of the money owed on the contract, I think you could see something there. But I could definitely see a situation where Tyone gets moved. Ian Happ, probably not. Suzuki, no. I don't see that. Swanson, obviously, not going anywhere. Of course, Imanaga not going anywhere. I think another interesting name could be Nico Hoerner. I think Nico Hoerner is very interesting. And I've seen some Cubs fans push back a little bit. But the way I think about it with the Chicago Cubs is you have a couple of guys down in the minor leagues that could be pretty close to Major League ready, or at least getting closer. You got Matt Shaw, you got Triantos down there. So I wonder if someone like Nico Hoerner could be a piece that could help out, a team like the Mariners out there, a team that could really use some guys that can hit for more contact, that, don't strike out as much, right? I think Hoerner could definitely be a piece that could help a team out there. We'll see. I actually want to check one thing. Has Hoerner only played short and second this year? Okay, he has. Has Hoerner ever played third? He has played a little bit of third. Not much, though. All right, I'll get back to that in a little bit. But I think Hoerner could be a piece if the Cubs were to sell. And, if I'm thinking about the Cubs here, if you are, possibly looking into trading Hoerner, he's got a good value, right? He's got 2 more seasons of control after this year. He has pretty decent projections for the next couple of years. You could get yourself a pretty nice package back for Hoerner. So, yeah, that would be a bit of a dent to the current Major League team, but I think at this point, it's worth looking into. I don't see why not. I think they're, teams, if they're really trying to look for a bit of a spark in their lineup, I think Hoerner could be a guy that can help get you there. And, he's not having a bad season by any means. It's not the same season that he was having last year, but he's hitting .258. He's got a .338 on base. He's got a 100 WRC plus, and he's going to play good defense. That's one thing with Hoerner, and he's going to give you a little bit of speed. As you can see here, 14 stolen bases for Nico Hoerner. So, I think he could be a guy that maybe you see get moved. We'll see. But it's going to get interesting here with the Chicago Cubs. How are the Cubbies doing right now? Are they losing to the Brewers right now? What is happening here? They are winning against the Brewers right now, so they are trying to stay alive here. But look out for the Cubs. This week is going to be very important for the Cubbies. But since I brought up the Mariners, let's talk a little about Vlad Jr. Vlad Jr. This is an interesting one, right? Now, the Blue Jays. We all know what's going on with the Blue Jays this year. They have completely fallen off. They are definitely not going to be in it this year. And, you got a couple of guys. You got Bo Bichette, you got Vlad Jr. But there's been a couple of question marks with those two, right? Vlad, I would say, has negated those question marks over the last month or so. He's been hitting really well. If you take a look at the numbers with Vlad, very solid numbers. All right, got off to a bit of a slow start. People were worrying once again, is Vlad cooked? But no, pretty solid numbers once again. Back closer to those 2021 numbers. Hitting .292, has an on-base at .362, slugging at a .473, a WRC plus of 138. Has a Fangraph wins above replacement at 1.7. He was projected this year for a 3.2 on Zips. So you're looking at about another win and a half from Vlad, mainly from Vlad's bat, because he's not going to give you much defensively, right? Now, here's the thing with Vlad Jr. Now, I definitely think he could be a great piece for the Seattle Mariners, right? If you're looking at Vlad, imagining Vlad in this lineup. We all know the deal with the Mariners lineup. It has been, one of the most lackadaisical lineups in Major League Baseball this year. Lots of strikeouts. Guys just really having trouble trying to keep things going in this lineup. J-Rod's been slow so far this year. Garver got off to a terrible start. Polanco has not really done all that much for them. J.P. Crawford hasn't been the same guy that he was last year. So Vlad could definitely bring something to this lineup, especially with the fact that it doesn't say it up here, and I see Ty France is still on the Major League squad. But if you didn't catch it yesterday, they put Ty France on waivers, right? So if he doesn't get claimed, I believe that if he doesn't get claimed, I believe he just becomes a free agent. Is that correct? I feel like maybe I read that wrong. Let me double check here. So, the waiver also referred to as a release. Yeah, so you're basically releasing him at that point. So basically, he's just waiting to see if a team picks him up, right? I wonder if my Red Sox end up picking him up. That's a team that could use a right-handed bat, that could also play first base. I would not be surprised if my Red Sox picked up Ty France. I'm going to keep my eye out for that one. Either way, though, Ty France has not been that same guy from a couple of years ago. They could use an upgrade. Yeah, Vlad would definitely fit here in Seattle. It would make sense. However, here's the deal with Vlad Jr., right? Now, I know you're going to see a lot of people out there, right? The Blue Jays, Ross Atkins, he came out, said, it doesn't make sense to trade these guys, right? We still, basically, we want to compete for next year, right? Here's the deal with Vlad. I'll tell you this right now. Maybe I'm wrong. I think if Vlad had a higher trade value, I think the Blue Jays would move him no matter what. And here's the reason why. If you go to baseballtradevalues.com, Vlad Jr. has around a $5 million trade value. You might be wondering, what, $5 million? That's nothing. He's having a really good year. Why is that so low? Okay, here's a couple of reasons. Okay, first base, that's not going to help, right? I know there's other first basemen out there. They have much better values. I'll get to it in just a little bit. But Vlad, that first base position is not helping him, really. And he's not really a great defender there. He'll get the job done for the most part at first base. The big thing with Vlad, right? Sure, he's putting up good numbers, right? He's on his way to, you're probably looking at least a 3.0 Fangraph wins above replacement, at least. However, I think a lot of people forget this with Vlad. He's making a lot of money. He's making a ton of money. He's making around $20 million this year. So when you come up with a player's trade value, you take their field performance, right? Their field value, and then you subtract the money they're making. And then whatever number that is, that's what teams are usually going to be looking for when it comes to getting prospects in return, right? If you're looking at it from just an economical point of view, that's pretty much what it is. And then you put other factors into it, right? You take a look at, team needs, team philosophies. That's where the human element comes into it. But if you're looking at it from a mathematical and an economical point of view, you simply just take their field value, how much they're contributing to you on the field. Like I said a little bit earlier, each win is around $8 million. So if you have a two wins above replacement player, that's $16 million, right? You subtract their salary from that. So let's say you have a player that has a 2.0 Fangraph wins above replacement. That's $16 million. If they're making $20 million, you subtract that. That's a -4 value, right? That's not saying the player is bad, but when you're looking at it money-wise, value-wise, it's not a great deal, right? It's like a car, right? If you have a car that is worth $20 million, my goodness. If you have a car that's worth $20,000, but you owe $25,000 on it, that's not saying the car is bad. It's a new car. It's got 10,000 miles on it. It's a car that's in good shape. But if you owe $25 million on it, that car is worth negative $5,000. That's pretty much what this is at the end of the day. So if you're wondering why his value is on the lower side, that's why, right? But it's not just this year, it's also next year, because he is projected next year to also have some pretty good numbers, right? So next year, they're looking at around, again, a 3-win player. So that's worth around $24 million. So Vlad next year, though, is probably going to be getting a pay raise, right? Arbitration this year is at around $20 million. You're probably going to see Vlad make around $25 million next year. So, yeah, he could end up being worth $24 million, but you're paying him $25, right? So it's, again, if you're looking to get prospects back, you're not really going to get that much, right? It's like if you go to like I said, for the car dealership. If you go to the car dealership, you owe 20 grand. Car is worth 18, right? That's a difference of $2,000. You're not just going to say to the car dealership, "Hey, can you just give me that $2,000?" No, we're not going to give you that. You need to pay the difference, right? So it doesn't work that way. Just saying. So, hey, economics at the end of the day. It's not even that really deep, right? It's just kind of simple math. But Vlad, I'm going to be honest with you. I think if the Mariners in this situation, I think if they overpay for him, I think if they throw like $10 to $15 million of value at the Blue Jays in terms of prospects, maybe. I'm not going to discount it. I'm not going to say no to it. I think it could be possible. It depends on how desperate the Mariners are. I think the Blue Jays, if I'm going to guess, I don't think they're very motivated to move him because they're just not going to get all that much for him anyway. But if a team just overpays for him, well, then yeah, why not? Let's talk about it, right? Maybe the Mariners end up coughing up a couple of pieces. Now, if you look at Vlad here, right now, the median value is around $5 million, but that could go, maybe up a little higher, maybe to around $6 million. But I'd say, let's say if the Mariners, if they want to overspend a little bit, maybe they could get something done. Maybe they could throw in you could do a Ty Pete, something like that. I don't know, but I feel like the Blue Jays might want something to help them compete for next year. That's just what I'm thinking. So maybe you would have to send back like a Locklear. Again, I'm not saying that's a fair trade. That's probably not a fair trade, right? But I would think for the Blue Jays, they probably want something that they could plug in for next year. So, yeah, this is not a good trade. Yeah, Mariners fans, I don't know how Mariners fans would feel about this one. Mariners fans, let me know. Would you just overpay for someone like Vlad Jr.? Would you give up a Tyler Locklear in this situation where, yeah, like on paper, you're probably losing this deal, but would you do this? Let me know. I guess it depends on how desperate the Mariners are. I think you maybe could see a situation where you do a Locklear and maybe one more small piece. I don't know. Again, that's where the human element comes into it. This is a perfect example here with BTV. I am showing you a situation where it's not just about the numbers. This would be a situation where a human element, motivational factors come into play, right? How desperate are the Mariners to get this done? Just because that trade right here says rejected, that doesn't necessarily mean it won't happen, right? This is, BTV is not the end all be all, and I have told you that before. So we'll see.